Hello, my friends. Welcome to me, your host, Christian Watson. So, my friends, a few days ago, on May 19th, this article right here is sourced from the 20th, but on May 19th, it was announced that a teenager in Fairfield, Connecticut, had been arrested by state police authorities on the grievous charge of hate speech. Now, the student was arrested. Let me explain some of the context. This article here from the Reason Foundation explains. This individual was arrested because they made a Snapchat picture of one of their black classmates in school and saying, why is he not in chains, as this down here, and also calls them the N-word as well. Obviously, this got reported, and the police decided that it would be justified to put this student in chains of their own and take him up to be publicly judged by the justice system. They are doing this on the basis of a 1917 law that, as this article says, is a misdemeanor with a potential $50 fine and a possible jail sentence of up to 30 days. The student has also been charged with breach of the peace. So, my friends, these topics are actually more complex than people make them. Well, first of all, something that's very clear. Should be very clear with this. This student should not have been arrested for many different reasons, but this student should not have been arrested. That's the simple part. Now we have to explain why. See, the philosopher can always make the assertion, but there's a connection between assertion and knowledge. The ancients understood this. In fact, I'm reading an essay right now called An Essay on Philosophical Science, which explores the relation between assertion and knowledge. So if I assert something, that assertion cannot necessarily be made, or made truthfully and validly. That's not even a word, but still, cannot be made truthfully without the presence of knowledge. So, the knowledge and the context surrounding the knowledge of this incident is the most concerning thing here. You had some bureaucrat who wanted to impose their sanctimonious, subjective values onto this teenager by the bludgeon of the state. That's the context. And the knowledge, of course, comes from us understanding that the bureaucrat did this by and through a law that was dated to an era in which free speech was actually, the First Amendment was actually only fully recognized a few years before the 1917 law. We're in an era in which you can still get arrested for saying politically unpopular opinions. You can still get arrested for doing things that people deem as socially undesirable. You can still get arrested for so many different things in which principles of Americanism are not even fully realized yet. And there would be some who say that they're not realized now. I think they're more realized than they have been in the course of human history. You're going to appeal to the worst part of our history and use that to make a judgment in the future. That seems rather illogical to me. Well, because judgments should not necessarily be made on the chronology of an idea. Judgment should be made on the merits of the principle. And the merits of this principle simply show someone who is obviously exhibiting ignorance. Someone, I don't want to blame the parents because I don't know, obviously. If you're 16, when I was 16, I was all over the internet. I was more addicted than I am right now. So I don't know. Maybe the 16-year-old got it from the internet. I don't know. But you have someone who's obviously exuding ignorance. But the context here is attempting to transport things from a time in which values were not necessarily being acknowledged in our system and then inflict them right now. That's just absolutely irrational. Then we go over to the fact that the idea of hate speech itself is actually a fundamentally unsound concept. Why? Because, my friends, and this is actually one of the reasons why I think that it is important to understand what speech actually is. When we come into this world, we have very few ways of understanding the world that do not involve talking, that do not involve conversation, that do not involve some kind of dialogue. You can have silent dialogues with books even. You don't have to have a verbal dialogue. Dialogue is quite literally the building block of knowledge, whether it's verbal or nonverbal. In this case, we're talking about the verbal. And so Verbal dialogue, no matter how offensive, no matter how much they harm someone's sensibilities, simply reveals someone to a different aspect of the world, to a different aspect of reality. Even if that aspect of reality is based upon ignorance, even if it's based upon a narrow understanding of reality, it's still broadening your ability to get closer to the capital T truth. But when you say hate speech, you confuse the process of acquiring human knowledge with the need to be sensible to certain sensibilities, and you confuse those sensibilities, the violation of those sensibilities, with physical harm, and then you use that confusion to justify the shutting out of free speech. Free speech is not just something that was established with the First Amendment. Free speech, and speech in general, again, is the building block of knowledge. This decision for them to arrest this kid is an affront to knowledge. John Stuart Mill said that we learn things through experience and through discourse, dialogue, in Chapter 3 of On Liberty. He says the discourse, the dialogue, can actually help mold our experience, refine our experience, show us our errors, and lead us to better conclusions. But without the dialogue, when you simply emphasize experience, and this is actually precisely what critical race theorists and people who believe, like Mary Matsuda, a critical race theorist from Hawaii, who believes that speech is violence, they eliminate the dialogue in that equation, and they confine all of our understanding to our personal experiences, and therefore prevent us from understanding the world how it truly is. In a sense, this response to an ignorant person's utterances on Snapchat is itself the highest form of ignorance. Now, some may say, Christian, there are certain environments in which certain conduct or certain language is appropriate. I agree with you. And guess what? Those environments should handle those things in their own self-governing ways. The school district has the ability to reprimand a student for being blatantly rude as they were being in this story here. However, it is not the government's legitimate duty to micromanage niceties, to micromanage kind conduct. Not simply because it doesn't work, because guess what? I promise you, if this kid has true racism in their heart, and it seems as if they do, this action has only emboldened and entrenched their racial paradigm. It's unfortunate, but it's the truth. This action has only made them hate certain kind of people even more. This is the same argument that I use with people who think they can legislate morality and virtue. You can't do that. You have to have certain ethical standards. You can't hurt other people, and other stuff, but you cannot legislate someone's private moral decisions, because those flow from the heart, and the heart is one of the most complex and irrational things. Irrational aspects of the human condition. They're trying to change the heart through force, and that does nothing but make the heart even colder and harder than it actually is. Because the only way someone can actually hold good views and genuinely mean them is if they have a change in their mindset. So not only is this law bad because it eliminates the experience that we need to understand the world, and the discourse that we need to understand the world, it's bad because it's an attempt to change the heart of someone through a mechanism that only makes the heart more and more stubborn. Hate speech itself, again, is a very insular way of viewing things. It's unfortunate this happened, but it is my hope that we will have a revolution of thought that will escape from these kind of paradigms, that will escape from this kind of oversensitivity, and that will give wider birth to the ideas of discourse, to the ideas of understanding, to the ideas of being uncomfortable, even in environments in which comfortability is a given. And hey, this does not mean we don't punish this kid. This means that the school should do that, not the government. This means that the legitimacy of punishing this kid should be based upon the merits of what they actually did. In this case, I'm not entirely sure how they breached the peace by making a post that was non-verbal and had a caption on it. I have absolutely no clue whatsoever. I have absolutely no clue. It makes no sense to me. But it's unfortunate that that certain sections of society are so willing to do this. all to say they are virtuous. True virtue comes in knowing when to act and when to hold your peace. True virtue comes in knowing what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. True virtue comes in knowing the limits of one's own moral goodness in relation to someone's own development. In this case, this person is still obviously developing, and it would be unfortunate to make an example out of someone who already has gone down the wrong road. Because guess what? That's not going to stop them from pursuing that wrong road. So, think on it. This is a very disappointing case, but it's all right. I love all of you guys. And if you want to support me, patreon.com/officialcwatson or PayPal, officialcwatson@gmail.com. I love you, and please stay pensive. Bye.